Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and this is a special 10-part series we're doing on scaling your startup. The first episode we just completed, and that was fundraising and getting funding for your startup. That's what we hear about all the time. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important topics that you have to have nailed inside of your company before you start to grow, before you start to scale. And that topic is communications. We're going to talk all about communications, internal, external, investors, team members, co-founders, and my guest today are three of the four Fantastic Four members, or two of the four Fantastic Four members here at This Week in Startups and Launch, our investment company. Ashley Whitehurst is our managing director of syndicates, and Sam August is our president, and she makes sure the whole system is running. So welcome back to the program, Ashley.
Thanks for having me.
And Sam, welcome back. This is your first appearance on the Scale series that we're doing, this 10-part Scale series. And we've been working pretty hard on these documents to try to really tap into what we've learned over hundreds of investments, watching a lot of failure, watching a lot of success. And Sam actually ran her own startup as well, so she's got some experience on the other side of the table. If you want to follow along with this deck, it's available at thisweekinstartup.com/scale. So if you go to thisweekinstartup.com/scale, you'll see the deck. Depending on when you tune in, if we've completed all 10 episodes in the series, you'll see all 10 decks as one giant deck with about 70, 80 slides. If you're tuning in after episode 2 or 3, you might just see 20 or 30 slides. We're just going to add each episode to the deck. And the deck will have some links in it and some ability for you to add notes and if you're confused about anything. So go to thisweekinstartups.com/scale. SCALE. All right, Ashley, what is our first topic in our scaling communications at your startup?
Yeah, we're going to start the very beginning with co-founder alignment. So in this topic, we're going to discuss what the priorities are when first communicating about your startup. So Sam, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so the top priority is that you absolutely must have alignment among the founding team. You want to start discussions early on about your company mission and values and make sure you all agree. If you don't agree, it's highly likely that you won't succeed.
Yeah, and why are you there? I mean, if you have a mission to build Airbnb and you don't like to travel and you certainly don't want to stay in people's houses or extra bedrooms or extra apartments, you probably shouldn't have joined that startup. You should have joined an enterprise software company. So agreement on the mission is critical.
Yeah, and a lot of co-founders think, oh, well, we can always flesh this out later or things will change. But in most situations, at least what I've seen is that doesn't happen and it only gets worse.
Got it. And I see here point 2, agreeing on the roles. How does one go about doing this?
Yeah, so with this one, it's important that you agree on a division of responsibilities and make sure everyone understands there are certain functions within the company. So having very clearly defined roles, within the CEO title, COO title. In the very beginning, I think there's going to be a lot of overlap, but you want to make sure you have, who is in charge of the tech, who's going to be running the product team, who's in charge of sales, HR, things like that. Got
it. And for people who have never run a startup, oh boy, they may not even know what the roles are. This is where having great mentors, investors, or board members, they can say, listen, there's going to be 3 main functions at this company or 5 main functions at this company. You got to figure out a way to split up this work and have some intentionality about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And then another thing that's important is just understanding each other's communication styles. So not only among the co-founding team, but the entire founding team and initial employees and beyond. So you want to discuss these preferences. Some people, will have expectations early on about work-life balance, things like that. So all of this, you just want to discuss right in the beginning. And this could also include, introversion versus extroversion, how people like to receive feedback, things like that.
Got it. And also, I'm assuming here, if you're not communicating well, people's minds tend to wander. So sometimes you'll have somebody who leaves at 5:30 every day and you're like, what's going on there? And maybe they have to pick their kids up from school or, maybe they're going to yoga, but they're back online for 2 more hours and you just didn't see that work. Mm-hmm. And so your mind can wander, and being candid with each other as co-founders as to the work style and the communication style, and maybe even feedback. Some people don't take feedback very well. They need to really go slow, and they feel very accused if there's any criticism or something like that. I think that's always the problem I see with founders is that they're really not very good at giving criticism. everybody wants to focus on what's going well. But the job of the CEO and the founding team is to be able to be candid and look at what's not working. How should you deliver the bad news? How should bad news be communicated to each other? Do you guys have feelings about that?
Yeah, and we'll talk about having tough conversations a little bit later too. But bad news is always important to share. Being direct about it is really, really important. Talking about what you believe are the main causes for whatever the bad news is, and then brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just discuss what to do. So oftentimes, you'll have a team member that is a high performer, but having a negative effect on the company culture, or vice versa. And so that'll probably be a discussion that you'll want to have early on, what to do in those situations and how bad it needs to get before, action needs to be taken.
So you could have somebody who's well-liked, but a poor performer, a great performer, but causing chaos in the company and being a jerk. And I guess the founders have to decide early on how we're going to handle those, which no founders do.
Right.
They never talk about, hey, what will we do if things go wrong, if we have to fire somebody?
Especially it'll never go wrong.
It can't possibly go wrong.
Right.
But invariably, the people who you hire for those first couple of years are going to be different than the people you hire in the next phase of the company, the scaling phase of the company. So really understanding how you're going to add people to the team and split up responsibilities is super important. This is why I think roles and responsibilities are super important. If you can build an org chart of what the company looks like today with 5 or 6 people on it, but what it'll eventually look like when one person isn't doing operations, office management, HR, marketing, and sales, and the other person is doing product design, user testing, support. I mean, sometimes people have too many roles, but to show the org chart at 30 people when you're only at 6 or 7 is a nice way to sort of understand how this will change over time.
Yeah, and really understand what each co-founder wants to be working on and what they're passionate about. That can be, helpful too.
Yeah. What's our last one here?
Yeah, and of course, it's important to set time and attention expectations with your loved one. So you definitely want to have spousal buy-in. You want to make sure that you're communicating what this is going to take, what the time investment's going to be, what the risks are, the different types of sacrifices that you're inevitably going to take, and just make sure that your spouse is aware of it and, ultimately okay with it.
Yeah, spousal or significant other buy-in, something that most people don't spend enough time on. If you're 3 co-founders and all 3 of you are married or have a significant other, you really have 6 co-founders, 3 of them who aren't in the office every day, but who can have an impact on the business, and making sure they understand the sacrifice and the duration of the sacrifice. Critically important. I'm going to put 4 years into this business, which means I'm going to be on call essentially. And maybe you have kids or you've got a spouse who wants to, take the summer off or take a month. And that lack of alignment with your 3rd co-founder or 4th co-founder, that could cause chaos, especially for the person who's trying to make a decision. Am I loyal to the business and I work all of July and August, or am I loyal to my family or significant other or spouse who wants to take 6 weeks every summer because, they're European and that's how they do things over there and they want to take 6 weeks?